Hello and welcome to Monograph. I'm your host, Jackie Clay. Today we're at Vinegar Contemporary in Birmingham. I had the opportunity to attend the opening for the recent multimedia installation by artist Brandi Shah in collaboration with Celeste Pfau. We'll sit down with both artists in this episode. We'll also talk with Vinegar co-directors Melissa Yes and Ann Trotson.
I see you. I see all of you. Then come, they respond. Let us build together from the ashes.
Welcome, Brandi Shah.
Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your practice.
So I am a physician by vocation. That's my main gig that I do during the week. I'm also a lifelong writer / poet. My main genre has been poetry, and that's just sort of been with me throughout my life, even with sort of medical training and all of the other sort of things and pursuits that I've done. I've sort of just been meshing all of that together over the years.
So I was so excited I was able to attend the opening last night with my family. You know, what do you want visitors to experience if they're able to come to this show at Vinegar? You know.
Yeah, so thank you for coming. That was like a really exhilarating time because I have never had an opening before. This is my first opening to anything. You know, each piece is sort of like trying to represent, some aspect of power that I think digital storytelling can have. So I showed my first piece, Solitary Third Place, in what I consider draft form, and had to really work against the instinct to like go and revise everything and just go with the feeling that it seemed to give people when I've showed it before, and just understand that something can be first and in that version, and that's okay. Then I would say the red truck is more of a traditional digital story. I actually should say that my first collaboration with an artist is in that piece because my daughter actually drew the pictures of the red truck storybook. And then the digital poetry, so Another Solstice is probably the most close to like digital poetry, where I just wrote a poem and I was like, what images can I put with this that when I close my eyes and hear the words like would go along with this. And then Woman in the Alley is really my big attempt at narrative advocacy, and that's what I see being one of the most powerful things that digital stories can do, that it can make people aware and it can ask people to act. And that really goes along with sort of this grander idea I have of that this can lead to creating a platform, a valuable space for digital storytelling here in Birmingham, where we can create something like a community storytelling lab that can bring anyone in the community into a place where they can have the equipment they need, the skill building they need, the mentorship they need, to just feel affirmed and encouraged to tell stories. But one thing I hope is that people could tell their stories and find a way to share them that changes hearts and minds.
I know you're beginning to also blend like the work you do privately as a writer and the digital storytelling that you're beginning with your practice as a doctor.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I have had the honor of being able to create an inaugural course at UAB, which is where I work, with the medical students there. So I started an elective through my home department, which is the Department of Family and Community Medicine at UAB, where I invited medical students to start exploring what story work could be in medicine, getting outside of the typical interviewing and information gathering that's really quite rote and protocolized and really about seeking answers and more about seeking context and creating it more of an affirming space for their patients. So the course is actually called Holding Space, Power of Storytelling in Medicine. We have a lovely, nice-sized group right now of 4 medical students, and they are paired with community storytellers. And one point of the course is that each year that it happens is that we'll be inviting people from traditionally marginalized populations to come have a platform to tell their stories, because one unfortunate thing about storytelling is everyone's not invited to be a part of it in our society. And the first half of the course has been sort of community building, rapport building, voice finding for everybody. And now the second half of the course, the students are paired with a storyteller to work on a digital story collaboration. The goal being for the storyteller to be able to tell a story that needs to be told about their health journey, their lived experience, and the students being in a role of advocate and support figure and affirming force, and less about trying to be in the paternalistic role of medicine and trying to sort of guide things one way or the other.
Thank you so much. This was fun.
Nice to be with you.
Up next, we have multimedia artist Lily Siegel, whose colorful work also pushes conventional storytelling.
I don't know if there's really like a specific way that I am a filmmaker, because I feel like I came in from visual art. So I feel like that has a lot of influence on how I approach filmmaking. I never really was a person who watched a bunch of films or was really interested in films, so I feel like I'm always learning about it. Yeah, I feel like I say, oh yeah, I'm a filmmaker, but honestly, I'm like, last year, I like just watched The Godfather and whatever, so. I actually started out as a visual artist in high school, so I went to the Alabama School of Fine Arts, and then I graduated, and then kind of actually on a whim, it seemed at the time, I chose to study film at art school, and then I quite enjoyed it, and I actually was kind of good at it too. Yeah, I think all the stuff, it is quite a broad range, and you're like, well, what the heck does she actually make, and what exactly like links all of this stuff together? But I think it all comes from a place of honesty and relatability. That's something I always strive to put into my work, which I think I really learned at ASFA about honesty in the work. And, you know, whether you're being honest to yourself as an artist, and I think other people can definitely tell if you are or if you're not. I have lots of people who I look up to, but no, I never really had a role model. I hope to be a role model. I'm sure there's another, you know, person out there who could relate to me in some way. I hope there is. I think I've been using art and film as like a therapy for myself, kind of work things out through film and art. I think that's really been happening my whole life, whether I've wanted it or not. This medium is just so happens to be the medium that I'm expressing myself in right now. I feel like I'm kind of self-realizing myself. It's taking a long ass time to do that. Kind of picking apart each identity as I go. Like, well, what does it mean to be an American? In my school now, which is largely British people and people from the EU, what is it like to be that one American voice there? And not just American, but like Korean American from Alabama. A Jewish voice as well. God, what did I miss? Adoptee, disabled, whatever. Like, what does that mean? So each of them I kind of have to pick apart, and I'm still working through it. It's a lot to handle, and I feel like that's how I relate to people. Perhaps is the unique is the universal. So I moved back to Birmingham after I graduated. I told never to come back here, and then I spent 2 years here, and actually I kind of liked it. But yeah, every time I come back to Birmingham, it's full of like nostalgia and happiness, and I have good friends here, and you know, I think it's taught me a lot. Even though Birmingham is full of all of its complicated history and present and I think future, I don't think there's really anything quite else like being from Birmingham.
Hello, I'm here with Brandi Shah's friend and collaborator, Celeste Pfau. Welcome, Celeste.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here.
Do you work with collaborators often? Like, what is that relationship like?
I do. I make a very clear effort to try to collaborate with as many people as possible every year. I think it's a really interesting way to grow and push my own work. I really appreciate the feedback loop or the friction that occurs when you're collaborating. I feel like a lot of visual artists are expected to just work alone. Mm-hmm. And in a lot of the performing arts fields, there's a culture of collaborating. It's a given that in a theater production, there's going to be a lot of people behind the scenes working together, as well as in certain musical performances. And in this particular collaboration, Brandi wrote the poem, and she had specific imagery she wanted to explore. The whole process felt very collaborative. It wasn't like she handed me the poem and then we met a few months later, and so we met multiple times to kind of figure out what kind of imagery this needed. She and I also knew that the poem didn't need to be oversaturated with imagery, like giving it space for you to process the words. So I wanted to be really careful about what images I did bring up. And this poem is in a way full of emotions that are a little hard to process, but in a good way. Like, the poem is addressing a lot of things that have happened this past year, and I really wanted to make a piece that was paying respect to some of the loss. I'm really interested in the tactile world and physically making things, so I asked her if she'd be okay if I could make a small physical installation with some of the parts that I used in helping make the imagery for the movie. So that's how this installation came about. I would not have made this installation in this way if it had not been for Brandi and this poem. It's an actual live processing, synthesizing of feelings and emotions and things going on. And Brandi is really good with words. I am not as good with articulating a feeling. So that's why I have turned towards making things out of materials and visually trying to evoke a feeling. And every single material you use has a feeling or an essence. So when I make an installation piece, I'm really thinking about, okay, what if I bring in this piece of wood and it's burnt? Or what if I bring in an actual bird's nest that I found? So essentially, all the materials on this wall behind me have kind of a hidden meaning.
Do you have any advice for people who are creating together? Some advice for collaboration,
Yeah.
Things that you do that you feel really feed the process?
Collaborating has been such a pleasure with so many different people, and every single time that I collaborate with someone, it's different. It's almost like when you have different friends in your life, and each friend brings something out of you. And you have that specific chemistry with each other. So I would say when you are collaborating with someone, really think about what is it that they have that is not your strength, and really honor that, and embrace it. And what is it that you have that you can offer? Or you can also make the metaphor of like a potluck in a way, like you're going to this potluck of a collaboration and you're being like, this is what I can offer at this moment in my life. And depending on how many people are collaborating, if you do this in an honorable, open, transparent way where nobody feels taken advantage of, you can make something that no one could have made by themselves. And that's where I keep coming back to collaborating with people and different people and different types of artists, is because it's always a surprise what ends up happening in the end.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing all these details about the installation, about your collaboration, Brandi. Now we'll go to a segment that gives us more details on Celeste Pfau's practice.
One thing that I love about being an artist is that I can forge things that are not being used or being thrown away, and I can create out of them. My name is Celeste Pfau. I am a mixed media artist with an emphasis on the natural world and community. I've been working with natural materials since I was in preschool. I collect these natural materials and then create these unique compositions with them. It's very therapeutic and humbling. I am looking and touching and smelling each seed, each leaf, each branch, and paying respect to it. Some pieces that I have vary in materials and techniques. The pieces that I have out here, they are a combination of printmaking and drawing and painting, as well as sewing, and they are honoring the human connection to the natural world. Every type of medium has a kind of an essence to it. People have told me to pull back, just focus on one thing, focus on one medium, and I do focus. It's just that I tend to work a lot better and get more excited if I have like at least 5 to 10 projects going on at once. Some of it is printmaking, some of it is a sculpture, some of it's just gardening, so all of the different experiences and ways and modes of making influence each other. And they kind of start to have a conversation with each other and with you. I might have an idea of what the final piece is going to be, but a lot of the time it turns out to be something completely different. And I've come to peace with that. It's part of the process and I enjoy it. Why else would you make the work if you already knew what it was going to be? By getting the chance to do something again and again, you start to see a pattern, and the pattern is put in the time, work, be honest. You have to be honest. You have to be interested and curious. And usually that's a recipe for something good. You don't know what it's gonna be, but if you have the right kind of intention, it will lead you where you need to go. Creativity is fueled by adapting and reacting to what's going on. I think face masks are a really interesting way to show work because where you nourish yourself is your mouth. Where you breathe and exhale is your nose and mouth. It's a very special part of your face. And how cool is it to create something that somebody can go share with other people, that they can feel close to. And I think that's one of the biggest parts about creating work on fabric and on clothes. People can really play with it. There's a power in creating costumes, unique costumes, as well as regular clothes that make art relatable. Connection is the most broad theme I'm interested in exploring with creativity. Connection between imagery, like one element to another, how they connect when you're seeing it visually, but also connection between me and the person that's seeing the work. And two, I love creating in a community. So even though I make a lot of work by myself, I do a lot of work in relationship to other artists in the community. So I'm hoping that by interacting with people, whether it's in person or digitally, it's feeding the work in a positive way. The thing that I love about Alabama, and especially Birmingham, is that we are an extremely diverse community. Creativity comes in a lot of forms, and those forms can sometimes interact with each other. A lot of scientists come here to study the organisms around the rivers and in the forests, and it's an extremely biodiverse state. It just shows me that biodiversity is the way, and it can teach us as humans how to embrace diversity in our world, racially, socioeconomically, thought-wise, religiously. At the end of the day, even though maybe not everybody gets along, we can all use our skills in different ways to create something very strong. It's actually healthier for everyone. The natural world, it has taught me the value of having a role in the greater ecosystem. Meeting all these people and learning about all these things about Alabama's biodiversity and history and natural world means that I have work to do the rest of my life.
Hello, we're back at Vinegar in Birmingham, and we're here with their co-directors.
Ann Tronson.
And I'm Melissa Yes.
So look, what is Vinegar? Who is Vinegar for?
Kind of the premise behind Vinegar is that we're both really interested in art that pushes the boundaries of its medium. And so we're also both really interested in social activism and things that are going to push culture to a new place, a new awakening.
How we select work for this space, et cetera, is we're really interested in work that does offer something to the community. Experiencing art is often a very positive experience, but what else can it be?
You've also really supported artists directly and created community, not just through the physical space, but through virtual space during COVID. So tell us a little bit more about your residency you had recently, or this past summer.
It was a free program, and we brought in guest speakers for a series of 4 weeks. We met every week, and we listened to 2 speakers each. We had curators, community leaders, artists, poets. And so it was this integration of, listening, learning, reflecting, going off into your studio and doing things afterwards if you so chose, but most importantly, sort of digging into the questions that matter and doing it together in community. And we found that it went beyond our expectations. We felt like we actually somehow found a community in a virtual space, and it was really a rewarding experience.
The artists that came from all over the country, which was really surprising, that we had people interested in what Vinegar was doing from other places and that they were interested in this topic. It was also a real celebration of Birmingham. Mm-hmm. Almost all of our speakers, but 2 were from this area, or from Alabama. So that also felt really important to build a platform for people to lead.
Just thinking about timeline here, because you said it's been a year, which means that a big part of your time as Vinegar Contemporary in this space has been shaped by COVID. So what are the things that have changed from that plan you made to what we get to experience now?
Oh my gosh. So we had a whole year's worth of programming set up. We had artists from all over the world coming to do projects here. And then we had our local artists that we were already working with as well that would be doing other projects, but throughout the community. So we were kind of working on both of those. And so as soon as COVID hit, we canceled all programming for the rest of the year.
After the communities were figuring out how we can coexist with this virus, we brainstormed ways to open the gallery back up. And of course, social distancing and masks are center of that. And inside became this space where individuals, up to 3 or 4 people at a time, can come see the work. But everyone else who's waiting to come inside hangs out by the fire pits, makes s'mores, social distances, bundles up, and it's been actually kind of fun. And it actually kind of benefits the work, I think, because sometimes when I go, well, usually when I go to art openings pre-COVID, you go to the opening and you can't see the work because it's more about the party. And once you're inside with the work, you either have to move around people to see it, or you just can't even see or hear the work because there's just a party happening right amongst it. And this COVID situation has given us the opportunity to have the social engagement out there while people can come into this space and be quiet and still and actually focus on the work. And there's, like, who knows? I don't know what we'll do after COVID is behind us, but this might influence how we move forward.
Thank you both so much. Thank you for your generosity in hosting us in the space, and this is a beautiful exhibition. Thank you for having us. Also, thank you to Celeste Pfau and Brandi Shah for sharing their work and their installation here in Vinegar. We'll see you in summer 2021. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube and on Facebook. Bye-bye.